Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to another special edition of the Victory of Light radio show on the Pyramid One Network and exclusively on my website, The Promise Revealed. This is the question and answer interview with Cobra coming up. I have to thank my producers, John Allen, the Land of Oz Down Under, the backbone technologically, and of course, Bob Charles in the States running the other half of the radio show here. We do have some interesting updates this month, and I want to mention, I guess some people have complained to Cobra that some of my intros are a little long, and that's just the way it is, folks. I know some of you are interested in my information and some are not. This is my webpage. This is my radio show. And if you really don't like it, just scroll down the page and read the interview only. But I'm going to use this interview as I use every interview to share my website. I work very hard, and I appreciate donations and products being purchased to support myself. So I don't apologize for that, but I'd like you to understand that type of information is important for me and for many other people who are interested. So if you really don't like to listen to this type of stuff, then you have a free choice not to listen at all, to just read the transcript and push a little scroll button. So I personally get a lot of complaints about Cobra from other people. I always support him and always ignore any negative sayings from people. They always want him to come out and who is he and all this stuff. And people need to respect Cobra for who he is and his decisions to remain anonymous at this time. Cobra and I work together towards the same mission. I do have some different views from him, and I'm not afraid to say them on different things. For instance, I forgot to ask him in the interview this month, this is post-recorded, but I forgot to ask him about Valiant Thor because he had mentioned that Valiant Thor's mission is done. I talked to my Venusian contact, and they just laughed. Valiant Thor's mission is not done. No disrespect to Cobra. I don't know how he would happen to know what every single extraterrestrial is doing, but Cobra has a wonderful information. He is really explaining a lot about the technological aspects of the Matrix and some of the actions that are intended to bring about the change on the planet. And this change is coming. It's assured. And unlike Cobra, I don't feel the stranglet bombs are a possibility. I believe that the benevolent higher spiritual forces are watching and will step in at the right moment. I got him to admit that a little bit this month, but the forces that are working at this time are not capable of doing that. There's a higher authority that will step in at a certain point and see to it that this series of changes takes place. Exactly how this is going to take place, of course, we've mentioned many times, is a fluid model, so people have to accept that. So I do have my own voice here. I'm going to be sharing some other information on the history of the Earth, our interaction with other extraterrestrials. I've been given some new information, and we'll be bringing that forward, a lot more spiritual information, and sharing some advanced technologies in the near future. I'd like to bring out couple other things. I do have the Mount Shasta Ascension Portal Conference coming up, of course, with Omnic. I just wrapped an interview with her. You should be able to see it on my website very soon, if you haven't already, by the time this show comes out live. So that's an interesting interview for you to check out. I'm also going to be on Caravan to Midnight at the end of the month here with John B. Wells. And I'm going to recommend, if you don't get that live, check that on my page as well. The last time we spoke, we had a Cobra interview, and we're going to go over a little bit. They kind of tossed us under the bus there, and I'm going to address that in a gentle way with John, and we'll move forward. I have a Mr. Truth Seeker on my website. It's a great news source. And while you folks are here, if you're listening to this show, go to my website, The Promise Revealed, click on Mr. Truth Seeker. He has 5 sections every day. He is a human RSS feed. He takes Fulford Kailapeli, Goody T, Cobra, myself, many other sources of information in finance, politics, extraterrestrial, technology, and especially health. You go to his health page any one day, the posts, he must have 10 or 15 links to amazing, phenomenal information on health, what to avoid, what's taking place behind the scenes, political actions, and many wonderful insights on healing, technologies, modalities, and diets and supplements are available on my website under Mr. Truth Seeker. Highly recommended that you sign up for my blog and my newsletter and to get updates, especially when Mr. Truth Seeker posts some stuff. Great stuff. I'm also announcing I am starting what is called an inner circle. Dr. Frank Strange's had an inner circle, and he encouraged his students, myself in particular, to create my own inner circle, which is to gather people. It's kind of like a PFC meeting in a sense. It's gathering people, like-minded people together to share information. And I'm going to be doing that. I've actually taken Dr. Frank Strange's inner circle meetings and having these digitized, and they're going to be edited. These meetings were in Las Vegas twice a year, and they had a wealth of information. He would get off Victor 1, and he'd be sharing information from the Dead Sea Scrolls not released to the public. He was sharing lots of information of the spiritual nature, and especially about the life of Christ and that mission and the planetary redemption and the ongoing actions of the benevolent space family and how they work. So that information will be coming out on a regular basis. You're also, by joining and becoming a member of my inner circle, you will get discounts on specials on various products. You'll get some teachings that aren't necessarily need to be private per se, but these Dr. Frank Strange's inner circle meetings are kind of expensive to get downloaded. I bought some equipment to get this done, to preserve this legacy and to share this information to people who are awake and aware now. It's a wealth of knowledge from Commander Valiant Thor and, of course, on the life of Christ. And that mission is shared in these inner circle meetings, and I think you will find it fascinating and interesting. And it's time that people understand the truth of the history of this planet and, of course, our spiritual heritage and destiny here is very much part of my mission and work, is developing healing chambers. We'll get into that next month. So those are my updates for you. The main things are to know I want to thank Danelle, translator Sam Ritchie, the editor, and of course Ricky Serafico, the uncomparable sound engineer, and Mr. Stephen, or we call him Smalley 7, who does the Cobra interviews and does a fantastic job every month. So would like to thank all those people, and Cobra, of course, for coming on the show, and especially you listeners for keeping open minds and open hearts. I was a little drained the other day when we had the interview. I just finished 2 days prior some dental surgery, so if I'm sounding under the weather a little bit, I was. So I hope you appreciate this effort that we make. I do have donation buttons. I do have some specials offered. I'm really getting into the lasers and the crystals. I've tachinized a bunch of crystals with Cobra, and I'm in the process. We're going to be tachinizing some techites soon of the Sintamani zone, and I'll be having those available. And again, the other thing is the Mount Shasta Conference. Our early bird special is going to be ending soon. You're going to want to get your tickets there. And if you sign up as an Inner Circle member, you'll get a discount as well. So please do keep coming back to the Promise Revealed, and I want to thank you all and look forward to new information. Victory to the light, and thank all the people again at PFC for all their fine efforts there for preparing people for the good news. Thank you so much, and without further ado, here is Mr. Cobra Interview. Thank you all. And now, ladies and gentlemen, another special edition of the Victory of Light radio show with me, your host, Rob Potter. It's also going to be played eventually on the Pyramid One Network, where I want to thank my producers, John Allen and Bob Charles, for the great work there. You can find this archived on my website if you want to send it to people at the Promise Revealed under Radio Special Cobra Question and Answers. Cobra, once again, welcome to the Victory of the Light radio show. It's an honor to have you here again today.
Thank you for your invitation again.
Yeah, it's always great to talk to you. We always have so many wonderful things taking place in the world. We noticed we had your last post just the other day. It looked like we had a picture of I guess you call it the Dao Mu woman who's in China.
Okay, at least at this point, I will not state what exactly is on those two pictures. It is the highest purpose for people to connect with those and use their own intuition and their own inner skills to determine what is there, and what is even more important, to connect with the energy that is behind. Because this is the first phase of disclosure, is energetic. It is not so much an intellectual understanding or intellectual approach to this, but more of an energetic connection. And only then is the right time to release intellectual information of what is on those pictures and what they represent.
Yes, that's a very astute observation, and I myself feel the same thing. I was told recently, and I read also in the Corey ET, but I was recently told by one of my contacts that there's going to be lots of disinformation coming up, that the bad guys are very much going to try to break apart the light workers' information in the next 4 to 6 months as a part of a program. And the discernment, those people really should rely on the inner process of realization. Do you have any suggestions for people to be able to really find these answers within? How are people to know and determine this inner compass and to connect to this energetic principle which you're talking about?
I will use the same answer I already gave years ago. Combine inner higher intuition with mental knowledge, with the correct knowledge. And when you merge those two, and if you practice, you can get pretty much accurate in your discernment practice.
Okay, we have a lot of healing technology questions this month. Someone says, when will the advanced technologies be available to everyone free? If after the event, how soon after the event?
Yes, they will be available after the event. It is just a matter of logistics and the ability of people to receive those technologies. How soon after the event any particular individual will have access to those technologies?
Everyone be able to gain access to this technology? Will there be waiting lists? Are there any specific plans on how this stuff's to be released?
Yes, I said before, there are logistic limitations because after the event there will be priorities. Of course, the first one is food, clothes, and shelter for those who don't have it. And then people with chronic pain, and then the list goes on and on and on. And everybody will be contacted according to their position on that list, how urgent and how sincere their need is. But this will be distributed massively as soon as humanity is ready to receive those new technologies.
I was kind of curious on a personal level. At the time of the event, when the final scalar fields are brought down, and of course the benevolent spiritual space family is very close to the Earth with their healing rays and energies, will there be some spontaneous healings at the time of the event, some tremendous relief of pressure and some things of this nature?
Yes, of course, even before the event, there will be spontaneous healings and dramatic relief of pressure, which will start even before the event. People will begin to feel that as we get closer and closer to that exact moment, more and more and more.
Someone asked an interesting question about what it will be like for someone who is blind at the time of the event. Will they eventually possibly receive healing for this, I imagine, at a later date?
Later, after the event, yes.
Okay, and someone asked if you could describe in detail how these advanced technologies work.
There are many different advanced healing technologies, and they work on the principle of harmonizing all the physical and non-physical bodies, because the vast majority of physical illnesses are actually a physical manifestation of an energetic blockage on a certain level. And if those blockages are balanced, then the physical body can be healed easily. There are also advanced medical technologies that are based on manifestation protocols from the etheric plane, so-called manifestation chambers or replicators. If it is possible to replicate food, it's also possible to replicate human organs and actually redesign them in a way that is healthy.
Oh, that's very interesting. So we'll actually be able to replace that. So it seems as though there's going to be some protocols for medicinal herbs and things of this nature in combination with energetic technologies, correct?
Yes, of course.
Someone mentioned that you had said here, and I don't actually remember where this was, but you said there were some undiscovered medicinal healing resources on the planet. Do you know where they'll be discovered, or are these like in the Egyptian chambers and some of the ancient chambers that will be released in the future?
Not only there, but there are many places, many different ancient healing techniques, use of herbs, use of sound, use of meditation, various forms of healing that will be combined with the most advanced technologies.
Okay. Someone's wondering at this point in time, what do you think is the best resource or combination for anti-aging, cosmetic and internal?
The best resource is always connection with your own higher self, because your own higher self, only your own higher self has a power to reverse the entropy of the physical body.
Someone says diet plays a critical role in vitality and healing, and there are so many different combinations and so many discoveries out there. And from my experience with Dr. Bell and the vitamin formulations, certain things are found to do certain things, but everyone's different in their assimilation process, and everyone has different genetics. And a lot of times the foods need to be taken synergistically. Can you talk about, are there any particular combination of diet that you recommend? Obviously, we know that vegetarianism is strongly advised. Is that advisable for all people, vegetarianism? Some people have mentioned that blood types are different.
Okay, I am not a nutritionist, so I cannot answer this question in detail.
Okay, here's a weird one. Can you cure dyslexia with acupuncture?
Yes, it's possible to do that, but you see, there are various causes of that, and if you approach this multidimensionally, you will have more success.
Okay. Another question, which I think we've answered before, but are vaccines the cause of autism?
In some cases, yes.
Oh, and if there are other cases, what is a possible cause?
Autism can be caused by deep trauma, either prenatal or after the birth.
Okay. Yogananda mentioned that hair acts as an antenna to the astral plane, and that longer hair makes one sensitive. Can you comment about long hair and the more intuitive energy that we receive from it?
Yes, it actually does act as an antenna, and it does help us connect not only with the astral plane, but also with much higher planes of creation.
Okay. Well, it says current advanced healing technologies are being suppressed from those without money. Why does one have to pay into the system that is being liberated in order to be healed when healing would speed up the liberation process?
It is simply because people who are constructing those technologies need to pay for the parts, and they need to eat somewhere, and they need to have a roof over their head.
Okay. Can you talk about the cause of the Nepal earthquake?
Yes, it is the result of the increased activity of the galactic central sun. Since late April, the galactic central sun is becoming more active, and people can feel that in various ways. And also, the Earth's tectonic plates are responding to that increased activity. Actually, the planetary transformation process has now been delayed for at least 15 years, and it cannot be delayed for much longer. So, in the future, there will be more of that seismic activity happening.
I was told by one source that it was a message to China from the cabal. But, of course, it may be a little bit of a combination of both, I suppose.
No, the cabal is not responsible for everything that's happening on this planet, and it is certainly not responsible for those earthquakes.
Okay. All right. So let's see. I guess I'd like to ask the question here. Someone wants to know if you can tell us something about the Operation Master Plan and whether Master Plan must still happen before the event, and how many things must happen before the event, the master plan, and defeat the Chimera.
There is nothing called the Operation Master Plan. I posted once about the master plan, but this is not an actual operation. It is the overall plan for the event. And the overall plan for the event did not change in principle. There are certain details that did change, but the overall operations for the event are still the same.
Okay. I have been told that there are many timelines are in flux and things are not really stabilized, and that's why a lot of things are changing. There still seems to be some sort of manipulation and that things aren't really stabilized. That's why things aren't really happening. Is that correct? Are there multiple timelines still in flux at this point?
Yes, I would say there are sub-timelines. The main timeline has been stabilized, but there are, I would say, sub-timelines which are in flux. They are not manipulated directly, but I would say certain situations, certain conditions haven't been resolved yet, and the outcome of those events, those conditions is not known yet. And yes, some of those situations are extremely unstable. We have been dealing with one of those situations. Actually, the resistance has been dealing with one of those situations last week.
Yes, recently just did an interview with Omnek. I haven't published it yet. People can look for that. But she talked about the history of the solar system, and she had mentioned that the Earth had many different extraterrestrial inputs as far as life throughout the galaxy, and that the Earth is extremely rich in diversified life on the physical plane, as well as it has a large amount of water. Would you say that this is one of the things that make the Earth kind of a prime real estate?
Yeah, this is one of the reasons, but not the only reason.
What are the other reasons?
There are too numerous to mention here, but I would say that one of them is the position close to certain stargates in the sector of the galaxy. Then there was a lot of history, many different races being here throughout the galactic history, doing things through millions of years. And then the Cabal has chosen this as one of their strongholds. And this had a lot of effect because there was a lot of attention to this whole place throughout the galaxy.
So that's why the Archons, the Chimera, chose the Earth for their last stand.
One of the reasons, yes.
Okay. Can you talk how the dark forces live their lives? What do they do? I mean, when we talk about the Chimera, these are beings in human bodies. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So they sleep and eat like us, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You've talked about, we have this wars going on in outer space and different things. Can we talk a little bit? People want a little more detailed information about what the war consists of. You know, obviously there seems to be some explosions and destructions of spacecrafts in outer space. Is this correct?
Not exactly. The way the combat is taking place is a little bit different now. It is not as it is portrayed in the movies. I will not go into much details because it's classified. The technology the light forces use to clear the solar system is classified, and they are very effective. Everything is very silent and very effective. The dark ones just get wiped out, and they don't even know what hit them.
So some of these beings are actually killed in the process through their resistance to this, right?
This is classified information. I would say they are removed from their locations. They are taken to the processing facility on Ganymede, and those who don't want to accept the light are taken to the galactic central sun.
Yeah, that's a question I was wondering. If some of them die in a process, are they like the Chimera, we're taking people from Earth and forcing us back into the reincarnation process? Have the good guys stopped that process yet, or is that still happening?
You mean on planet Earth or other places?
Let's talk about in the solar system right now. If someone dies, are they taken to the processing system in Ganymede if they're involved in this conflict?
Okay, you need to specify your question very correctly because for different locations, a different process, and the answer is different.
Okay, let's say that there's a hostile base on an asteroid of Chimera, and this base is destroyed, and some beings die in that base. Are their souls taken to the Ganymede?
Yes, some of the souls are taken to the Ganymede.
Okay. Now on Earth, when people are dying, are Earth process still in control in the reincarnation process of the negative archons?
Yes, the archons still control the incarnation process on Earth.
Okay, so if a soul dies, do souls generally reincarnate right away, or they generally have a period of rest, correct?
Usually they have a period of rest, which is decreasing as the things are accelerating. But yes, most of the souls still do have a period of rest or period of processing of their past, and then sooner or later they are forced to reincarnate again.
Okay, as far as the ground troops are going on, are there still ongoing battles in the underground systems?
There is some limited conflict in the Chimera locations, but that's about it.
And are these actual firefights with weapons from the ground-based forces?
No. Again, the way the conflict happens now has changed a lot.
Okay, so there's really probably no really Earth forces involved in this. This is all resistance and confederation, correct?
Yes, the surface military forces are not involved in any underground conflicts anymore.
Okay, so we can say that our space family does not resort to murder, destruction, or violence in this way, correct? Or as occasionally this does happen?
This is classified information.
Right, okay. Well, I mean, I don't know, my opinion is from what I've heard that occasionally this does happen. It's not all.
This is a very sensitive question, and it's better not to answer at this point.
Okay. Someone asks, of course, why don't the Galactics just neutralize the Stranglet, Plasmatic, and Toplet bombs, considering they have advanced technology?
They do not have technology to do that.
I personally feel there's a higher force that eventually will step in that will absolutely assure and guarantee that. Would you agree that there is possibly a higher force that can see to that it happens?
There is always a higher force, and when the conditions are right, and when there is enough consciousness, the higher force does intervene.
Yeah, that's what I've been told. Omnic was in the interview. She was very confident and very clear. She said, this Earth will not be destroyed. They've been planning for thousands and thousands of years, and there's too much vested, and the Earth is too important for us to fail this time, and that the victory is absolutely assured. It's a matter of us moving through the process. So someone says here, and I guess this has to do with contract reversal or invoking spiritual guides and mentors, perhaps our guiding and ministering angels. Is there any way that people can appeal to some space high court, so to speak, against our free will being violated?
Yes, most certainly. People can do so-called decrees when they can make an appeal to the Galactic Corp against the Cabal, against all the violations that are taking place. And that actually helps the light forces because they have legal basis to intervene more directly.
So it does help when we make appeals to our guides, and prayer does actually have an effect, correct?
Yes, of course.
Very good, thank you. Can you tell us, are there still hostages in Chimera bases?
Yes.
The bad guys with the Stranglet bombs, someone's mentioned this, and I think we talk about this. If the dark forces kind of know that their time is up, I guess from their ego point, they really don't believe it is. But what is preventing them from exploding the Stranglet bombs if they feel like they might get tossed to the central sun? This type of consciousness might just be, out of sheer spite, like they do on other worlds, just set off a Stranglet bomb now.
It is because, I will put it this way. They don't really believe it's over until it's really over.
Okay, that's a good way to put it, because it's certainly not. There's a lot of stuff going down here. We have had some things come out in the future here. People have said that the mainstream news in UK talked about a Tesla battery that can power a house, for a day or something. I mean, it's not really a breakthrough, is it? It's just kind of like a small little attempt to pacify, advance. Do you know anything about that?
It is soft disclosure, I would say, a soft disclosure of moderately advanced technologies.
Okay. Here's an interesting one. Someone says, is there any more information in regards to the positive white-scaled reptilian race? I guess some people call the Unukai. And we know that, I suppose, that not all reptilians or draconians of that particular genus, racial phenotype, are necessarily evil. Is there any other sources out there that talks about, are there any of these races that are positive, and can we find any sources of that?
I would say that the reptilian type is quite widespread throughout the galaxy, and I would estimate about 10 or 15% of those went to the positive direction. And there are many different subversions of that reptilian type, and they are not widely known on this planet. And those who are of a more positive orientation are actually assisting in the operations to liberate the planet.
Yeah, someone says that we know that Cobra doesn't disclose timelines, but Wilcock has said something about 216 as being the kind of an end time. I'm surprised he gave a a year timeline for that, but would you concur, or would you say that there's certainly lots of variables at play and it could possibly take even longer?
I would say that the timelines that people are giving are based on their projected understanding of the situation and the plans of the group that they are in contact with. For example, the Eastern Alliance has a target date of the 1st of January next year. Certain other groups have certain other target dates, and some of those target dates do fall in the year 2016. But I will not give any comment from my perspective about this time frame. I am not giving any timelines for various reasons I have already explained many times.
Yes. Some of the Long Island and New York crews wanted to know what else they could do. They are eager to assist as a ground crew. I think they're talking about the group that went to Brookhaven.
Yes. I will suggest them they send me a private email. It's a tactical question. It's better not to discuss this publicly.
Okay, I'll have them ask you to say, we'll put it in New York, Long Island, in your header so Cobra will know. Cobra gets many, many emails, and again, do not take it personally if he doesn't answer them. It's the same thing for me. We do our best, and we're sorry if some of your questions don't get answered. As always, some of them are repeats, and some of them we just can't talk about.
Before we continue, I would like to say this again. I receive many emails, and I read all of them, but it's physically impossible for me to answer all of them. If I would be just answering the emails, I would take the whole day every day. So I have priorities, and I need to act according to those priorities. So all emails are read, and only those who have enough impact on the planetary liberation get answered.
Okay, that's fair enough, and I certainly understand that. Can you give us a little more information on the astral, etheric, and plasmic plane? Are we having some continued progress there? What's the situation with the astral parasites? Is it mostly just some very strong holdouts? Are those beings you mentioned that were hiding in little wormholes still around?
The situation is getting much better on the astral plane. The vast majority of this is clear. They are still hiding in certain holes throughout the planet, especially on those in war zones and more negative areas. There are still some of them, but it's much, much better. Also, the plasma situation is improving, so we have quite much of a progress here.
Very good. Someone had a kind of a political question about Cuba. They were there. They saw no chemtrails. Is Cuba, it's supposed to be opening up soon to kind of worldwide tourism once again. Can you talk about Cuba? Is it secretly been in league with the cabal the whole time, or are they completely separate?
The cabal did have some influence, especially the Jesuits had some influence there, but certain factions of the cabal did not have as much access as they had in other places. Of course, there is the Guantanamo base, which is a cabal stronghold, which is also on Cuban territory, but that's about it.
Can you talk about Fidel and Raul Castro? Were these true believers in communism? It seems he had a pretty large iron fist along the lines of his interpretation of communism. Can you comment upon them?
They were controlled by the Jesuits.
Interesting. Okay. Someone wants to know some of the ETs, or I guess I would call them higher angelic beings in relationship to spiritual processes. Can you talk about the creation of different races of humans, the variety? Was this engineered by higher beings, or is this part of a natural phenomenon?
Partially, it's a natural phenomenon, natural course of evolution, which was, of course, interfered various phases by different races through genetic experimentation.
Okay, I'm not sure, I may have missed this in one of your things, but someone wants to know about the Gaia portal. Is that real? I'm not sure what that means. Do you?
This would need to be clarified, what exactly the question is about.
Yeah, I thought so. According to the good ET guy, the space program has the ability to age regress and time regress their participants after their mission. Is that correct?
Okay, this is the part of information I cannot confirm. Also, Randy Kramer was talking about the same thing, but according to my sources, this is not happening.
Okay, also, someone mentioned that you had said that Al Bielek did not travel to the future. in a previous one, and they wanted to know, was that completely made up, or did he travel to a possible timeline in the future that existed when he was doing that type of thing?
Yes, he was actually having a psychic experience of a possible timeline future as it was understood at that time. It was just more of an internal spiritual psychic experience.
Okay, someone wants to know, do you still have contact with Semyasi?
I choose not to answer this question.
Okay, you had mentioned that some parts of the Urantia book are distorted. Can you talk about, it's a description of the order of the universes, wrong or right in your idea? And would you recommend the Urantia book as a partial guide towards the larger picture?
If you have a strong enough inner guidance and discernment ability, you can read that book because there is some valuable information in there, but it was written from a certain perspective that I would not agree completely with. It has been influenced to a certain degree. So if you have strong inner guidance and if you have a strong discernment abilities, yes, go ahead and read that book. Okay.
Can you talk about the office of the Christ as a position as opposed to a person?
The office of the Christ is an intellectual construct of the theosophies that wanted to describe a certain energy of unconditional love on a certain level of consciousness. It is not so much a position in a certain hierarchy, it's more a state of consciousness that everybody receives or attains at a certain level of evolution. And it's a universal experience of cosmic love that is actually the basis of enlightened universe.
Interesting. In my talk with Omnek, she has a new book coming out that a lot of publishers wouldn't publish previously, that she's now publishing, and it has to do with the life of Christ. She mentions that Mother Mary, and according to my sources from Kevin Ryerson years ago, who was a very clear out-of-body channel, said that the Essenes were a sect of beings that were living a very pure lifestyle under specific spiritual laws in order to prepare a vehicle that would contain a very special incarnation for the Christ. Now, Omnek says that Mary was a virgin at the time and that she was visited by a high-dimensional being, and she believes this being was from Sirius, and that Mary, and I'm not sure whether they had conjugal relations or not. Omnek wasn't clear on that, but I'm curious, higher dimensional beings, can they have children without having physical relations?
Yes, of course, like every human being, if the child is conceived in a test tube.
You mean ETs conceive their children in test tubes?
They can, if they want to.
I read in Semyasi's notes to Billy Meyer many years ago that they considered this a denigration and that would reduce the genetic line. I'm talking about an energetic two souls merging in a type of meditation and the woman becomes pregnant. Is that possible or no? Is it?
There needs to be a physical contact between the ovary and the sperm.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies that. Okay, thank you. Someone has a question. What is the truth behind mermaids? And there's a bunch of videos out there. I'm not sure if they're real or not, but could you talk about mermaids? Are they a real life form that exists?
Actually, mermaids were at one point a result of genetic engineering in Atlantis, and they did exist. And it is quite possible that some of them still exist in more remote corners of the Earth.
Okay, someone wants you to explain déjà vu from a higher energetic perspective.
Déjà vu is actually information that you receive from the future through a timeline.
Okay. Cobra, someone has a question here about robots. I guess they're talking about physical robotic things. Are they used much on other worlds, robots? I guess probably like we use them in technology for machines, but do they use any other type of robots?
They are used, but not so much as people would expect, because they have technologies which are more advanced. They can materialize everything from the etheric substance, and for mechanical work, there is very little mechanical work anywhere throughout the galaxy.
Okay, here's an interesting question. After the event has been in progress for a while and we've established ourselves, someone asks, is there a plan to control the world's population? And I was reading the book UFO Contact from Iarga, and they talked about people saying the Earth is overpopulated, could become an issue. While they agreed that could be, they said for a spiritually aware society, they are very much able to work in harmony so that there's no destruction and they don't really put so much stress on the planet, and that our planet has plenty of room for people. Would you agree with that?
Actually, after the event, after the first contact especially, there will be migration of part of the population away from the planet, and the long-term perspective, the population will decrease.
Okay. Are there cyborgs in operation here or off planet?
You mean like robots?
Yeah, humans, kind of with half mechanical, half human type of thing.
Okay, those things were much in vogue in a certain phase, which is over now, and the light forces are not using this, are not supporting this. There is a limited number of those still in Chimera bases, but this is being cleared out completely.
Okay. Are the computers manipulated by the cabal to win their situation? Are they still in control of the computer network, or is this an ongoing battle between the resistance movement and the light forces?
Unfortunately, at the moment, the cabal, the negative faction of NSA, still controls the computer network on the surface. The resistance movement has put a virus in the computer system, especially the global financial system, computer network. They can take down the internet if they wish, but they cannot control the internet. They can protect the blogs, but they cannot content directly, not yet. So it's a mixed situation at the moment.
Okay. Someone says that they're a member of the citizen militia in Virginia. It seems as if more could be done and to communicate with the good militias around the country to help humanity reach our objective. The militias could, of course, also use support in the form of training and equipment. It is estimated there are millions of us out there, far greater in numbers than the military and all the state, local, and federal agents combined. Has the resistance movement considered greater support and interaction the Earth-based militia groups? And I'm assuming that these are mostly ex-military who know the horrors of war and have been used like pawns and are willing to step up in a positive way. That's probably what he means. Is there going to be any outreaches to local groups in this manner?
The resistance movement cannot contact the surface population before the event because the cabal would retaliate strongly. But at the moment of the event, the resistance movement will contact certain militias, especially those more balanced and more regulated militias, and will include them in the operations.
Okay, there's been a recent international symposium that the Pope is actually going to speak about. They're going to be talking about global warming and this type of thing. Those kind of questions go back to another thing about the Jade Helm training. But I wanted to go into the situation with the Pope on this carbon tax type of thing that they've been talking about. It seems as though it's trying to gain more control and micromanage people's lives under some agenda. Do you know anything about this upcoming conference in September that's sponsored by the United Nations that the Pope is actually going to be the keynote speaker of?
It's just part of the overall plan of the Jesuits to have more global impact, and they are now much in agreement with the Rothschilds about the whole thing. So this is an engineered attempt of the Jesuits and Rothschilds to have more global impact, and it goes together with their plans to hijack the formation of the new financial system.
And ultimately, these plans are going to fail.
Yes, of course.
Unfortunately, in California, I'm not sure, I think it's passed, but it looks like they're trying to push through a bill that will mandate vaccinations for children will not be allowed to enter school. Unfortunately, many people will succumb to this. I'm sure it will also create an exodus of people for homeschooling, which probably isn't a bad idea. Fortunately, most of the major damage that takes place with vaccinations is usually when children are very young. Can you talk about the repercussions of these new vaccines that will be given to these children?
I think most people are aware of the dangers of vaccination. Luckily, the biochips have been removed from the vaccines, but the toxic chemicals are still there, and they are quite harmful. So there would need to be more of a coordinated effort to resist this new legislation.
Okay, there are reports that the ISIS or the Mossad Israelis are still very much involved in the ISIS program. Can you talk about ISIS and what's happening there?
I'm not using that name for the terrorist organization. I would ask you to use another name for that.
Okay, the terrorist organization by whatever name.
Islamic State or however you want to call it, but don't use the name ISIS for that because ISIS is a Asian goddess, nothing to do with this Jesuit creation.
Right, I understand. Let's call it the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service.
Okay.
Can you talk about what's going on there in Syria? Are they still having a major impact, or is most of this pumped up by the media, although I'm sure there's major impact for those personal lives that are being destroyed by these hostile, aggressive, violent actions? What is the condition of that group of terrorists?
It is both. They are actually quite present. They are doing much harm, but whatever harm they do, it is further manipulated and expanded by the media.
Okay. You mentioned before that if the Jade Helm got out of hand, we've been told that by certain sources that there are some Israeli agents in place in the United States and that they have many dirty bombs and secret little nuclear suitcase bombs that have been placed in various positions, similar to, of course, probably the 9/11 nuclear bombs. Can you talk about, is that going on? These are obviously closely monitored. Will the resistance movement stop any of these from exploding, or will they allow some of these to take place possibly?
There were always Israeli agents in the United States. There was not a moment in the recent U.S. history there were without Israeli agents on American soil. But this is just from the perspective of the resistance movement, this is a minor inconvenience. None of those bombs will be allowed to go off. This is absolutely controlled and monitored by the resistance. There is no threat from this, not at all.
Okay. Someone in one of our last interviews, you mentioned that China had grabbed some islands illegally in the Philippines. They were looking for gold. And now they're expanding and they're actually building military installations in there, complete with a harbor and an airstrip. Is this still for gold hunting, or is this just a position against the cabal? Is this aggressive cabal action, or what is going on there? Do you know?
I did not say exactly what you have stated, but I would just say that China has other means to get their gold, and whatever gold is remaining on the Philippines is not accessible by any faction at this moment.
Okay. Someone asked during the event, will Brussels, being a major part of the world headquarters there, during the event, will that be one of the, probably London and the Vatican as well, but will Brussels also be a major target of the resistance force in rounding up heavy-duty criminals?
Most heavy-duty criminals are not in Brussels. We have the traditional free centers of the Vatican, London City, and Washington, D.C. These are the major centers for the surface cabal. And everything else is minor centers which are not that important.
Are there going to be roles of different nations that will have specific tasks going on after the event?
This will not go nation by nation. This will go individual by individual according to their individual talents and skills.
Okay. Someone wanted to know, can you talk about, is there any special message for people from Hungary that you could give for them if you know anything about their country and what they're going through? Some people from Hungary would like to have some help.
Yes, there is a certain secret positive group in Hungary which has strong Templar connection, and that group is working for the new financial system. And you can see some effects. Hungary has resisted central banking Rothschild influence quite effectively lately. And this group is still keeping a low profile, so they cannot contact you directly. But they can research their history. There are certain very strong esoteric positive symbols in Hungary. I will just mention the crown of St. Stephen, and there are some other ones. There are some vortexes, some very ancient goddess vortexes in Hungary also. And some of them will have a quite important role at the time of the event.
Very good. I've been working with, I just did a couple of special interviews that were filmed, actually, with a group called Gemstone University. The leader there has a very unique form of education in regards to the details of how the financial system, well, of course, was put into place, as well as the cabals controlled and what we call the corporate, I guess some people call it the UCC, Uniform Commercial Code, and all of that stuff, what people call the straw man and the sovereignty movement. And I was really impressed with their intent and purpose, and they really want to educate people to what's going on. And it seems to me it's really important that people understand this process. But at a certain point in time at the event, there have been indications that the ETs want to work within the laws. There are certain contracts that we've made that allow these government officials to do what they do, even though they've hijacked the rule of law. It seems so unfair and unbalanced. At some point in time at the event, how will the repeal of these laws take place? I mean, after the event, are there still going to be parking tickets and courts for speeding and all of this cabal-related money drain of the population for this type of thing? How is this all going to shift?
Some of the laws will be canceled out immediately. Some of those regulations, especially, for example, speeding tickets and such, will be canceled out immediately. And there will be a quite intense and quite drastic legal reform that will put the legal system back again on the basis of the common law. And will actually merge the best of the both legal systems, the current statutory legal system and the old common law system. And this will further evolve as we get closer to the first contact, and we'll merge this with the Galactic Codex. And after the first contact, we will have a legal advice from the Galactic Counselors that will teach us how can we build the society in a way that will not restrict individual freedom, but will also protect us from harm that could be a result of other people exercising their own freedom.
Okay. And here's an interesting question I've kind of thought about when it comes to this world gold situation and the ASIC-backed currency. Clearly, the Chinese, and there's certain groups there that obviously have a lot of gold, and I'm sure there's many good people in the Eastern Dragon societies that control these large gold reserves. But it seems like so many people are having claims to these various gold accounts. I guess they call them M1. And I personally have been contacted to various groups. I've actually heard of 4 of them, which kind of blows my mind. I'm not a money person, but people have come out with me and talk about these different things. And from my perspective, Cobra, and I know many other people, we kind of consider the human element of greed and manipulation. How can any one person control this gold situation? To me, it makes sense that higher spiritual initiates of impeccable integrity are chosen by the spiritual hierarchy of the planet to be in control of these gold, to oversee them to the world's governments. Can you talk a little bit about, is China all in control, or there's elements within China that are probably in cahoots with the Kissingers, the Rockefellers, and the Vatican?
Okay. I will explain the whole situation. First, the statement that the dragons have a lot of gold is a myth. The vast majority of dragon families do not have physical gold. They have claims to the gold which was stolen from them. They have gold bonds, they have certificates, they have the boxes, but they don't have the gold. China as a country, has gold reserves which are quite extensive that China has accumulated in the last few decades. But this has nothing to do with the dragon families themselves. This has to do with the Eastern Alliance as a whole for the preparation for the new financial system. M1 Institute is a very old creation of the old cabal families and will be dismantled at the time of the event. When the event happens, the resistance movement under the guidance of the galactic light forces will guide the process of the gold distribution. There will be no single human entity, no single faction on the planet, either from China or from anywhere else, deciding where the gold goes. The gold will be used as a collateral, as the basis of the new transitional financial system. It will not be given to any particular group or any particular country. It will not be the beginning of a new powerful China that will control the rest of the world. It will not be the old way. It will be the new way. All the nations of the world benefit from the wealth which has been accumulated.
Okay, very good. That's kind of was my feeling too, that it's going to be in control of the light forces, and anybody who's holding these certificates, they're basically going to mean nothing, correct, for the most part?
Yes, those certificates will only be used as instruments for the bankruptcy of the Federal Reserve. This is their role. And there are many groups that try to cash those bonds. Of course, the vast majority of them has not been successful because the cabal doesn't want to acknowledge those bonds. And when everything is ready, the Eastern Alliance can bring those bonds to the table and demand payment from the Federal Reserve. And this will actually efficiently bankrupt the Federal Reserve. And this is the moment the resistance movement presses on the button and does the financial reset. And after the reset, those bonds will be worthless. They will not mean anything because even the Chinese dragon families have accumulated that gold from peasants, from people, from little people. The dynasties have been actually stealing that gold from people. It doesn't belong to them. It belongs to the whole humanity.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you said that because it seems like anyone at the top is kind of complicit in this system. There's a lot of people, hardworking, innocent people in the United States who are a little freaked out if the world's getting ready to ditch the dollar. Will the U.S. dollar devalue? That could create a lot of panic and hardship and stress in the United States, being one of the largest world currencies besides probably China and India, a number of people affected by the valuation of one currency. Can you talk about, will the U.S. be in trouble before the event and this gets stabilized?
Okay, it's not that easy to devalue the dollar. One faction of the cabal has plans to devalue the dollar to create social chaos that would lead to the martial law. That's their plan. And their plan will not be successful. Then there can be some instability in currencies, but devaluation is not such a stressful event that people are afraid of. It can bring a little bit of instability, but basically this is not something to be overly worried about. There are other aspects of the financial situation that are much more serious. The derivatives, the financial speculations, high-speed trading, the global complex financial system, which will collapse at the time of the reset. And when those things happen, it will go so fast, people will not have time to worry about it because then the event happens and there will be so much new intel released and so much new perspective that nobody will worry about dollar being devalued for 10 or 20 or even 50%.
Right, there's going to be a lot of powerful, positive revelations coming forward. I guess I wanted to talk about one more thing in regards to the money stuff. The Gemstone University guys are actually, because of their system is unwinding the cabal's control, they're working closely with the Swiss Indo. And I don't know if you know, but the Swiss Indo recently just opened up. They have several countries on board who are willing to go to the gold standard in Laos as of like 5 days ago. They had a large group over there, and according to them, the leader of Laos is setting up the main office of the Swiss Indo, and they are ready to go to gold-backed currency. In the sense, I'm kind of curious, have you heard about that? And it seems that anyone who's tried to gold-backed currency, Kennedy was assassinated, Muammar Gaddafi, not that he was a saint, but he was thumbing his nose at the cabal. and they took him out. Do you think this Swissindo operation in Laos will achieve some success as a model?
I would just take a look at the mass media. When the mainstream media announced a certain country went to the gold standard, this is when it will happen. And because when this happens, this is the beginning of the real change in the financial system.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going to go into the money anymore. This one's kind of pissing me off. I've refused to ask it of you, but I keep getting the questions. My God, people are telling me that the Earth is flat. I mean, all they have to do is look at a Hubble telescope and watch Saturn rotate. And I don't know why they need to hear it from you, but...
Okay, they will hear it from me. I will post a certain thing about this in my blog very soon. Okay,
the Earth is a sphere, correct?
The Earth is very close to a sphere. It is flattened a little bit, but it's basically a sphere. Yes. I don't even need to answer this. I think it's obvious.
I know. It's just ridiculous. So I wanted to ask you, someone wants to know if you can explain what ghosts are. I've heard different description. We have what are called waifs, and some of them are able to manifest in older buildings where the human protein it goes into the walls, and they're able to affect through an etheric ectoplasm effects, especially in older buildings. Spirits and poltergeists seem to have more effect. Can you explain a little bit, are there positive ghosts and negative ghosts, or this simply souls in transition that quite haven't passed over?
These are simply souls in transition, and their personality is exactly as it was when they were here on this planet. So you have all kinds of people walking here. Some of them are a little bit more positive, some of them a little bit less, and when they die, they just keep that personality with them for quite some time. And yes, many of them, you could describe them as ghosts or souls in transition.
Can you talk about the number 13 related to the divine feminine and the sisterhood of the rose?
Number 13 is not connected only with the sisterhood of the rose. It is the sacred number which actually describes the principle of free will.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the lifespan of the human after the event?
I have answered this question already. The lifespan after the event will be drastically increased, and people will be able to live much longer.
Okay, yes. Can you explain the difference between a portal and a black hole?
A portal is interdimensional connection between 2 points in space and time, and not every black hole is a portal. Some of them are, and only those of them who have been activated are actually portals. And black holes are much less widespread throughout this universe than most people think. They are something which is getting extremely, extremely rare, because this universe is evolving to a new phase which does involve much more light, and black holes are actually artifacts from an earlier time of the universe when it was not developed so much.
Okay, we have a question here. Can you talk about the mysteries of the black stone in Mecca?
I would not say there are any mysteries. It is just the Cabal using that sacred geometry form like a black stone as a main focus for their occult ritual to harvest human energy and keep human masses controlled.
Okay, I guess I have one more question here. I always found kind of interesting, and I have my understanding of it. I'm kind of curious. Can you talk about the Fatima events and the longest living child from the Fatima event? Was she prevented by the Cabal from telling the truth?
Yes.
I wonder why. I guess she just believed in the Pope then to tell the truth, right?
This was the old way of doing things, like going through the authorities.
Right. I'm surprised they did that. Anyway, can you talk a little bit about that experience where it's very similar to the one, I guess, in Bosnia there, but can you talk about the ground, the muddy fields dried up and the sun seemed to tilt? Clearly that was probably a spaceship under high...
That was a spaceship, yes.
Okay. And they were just working within the belief system of the people of that time?
Yes, exactly. They couldn't say because it was dangerous.
Okay. And I guess we'll lighten it up with the last one. We've already mentioned Avatar and The Matrix. Can you talk any few movies from Hollywood, new or old, that might have been inspired by the resistance force besides Avatar and The Matrix?
The agents of the resistance in Hollywood had to withdraw many years ago, so there was not much produced directly from the resistance influence since, I would say, 2004, 2005. Avatar was an exception. Jupiter Ascending, there were some coded messages about the secret space program in there. And there was also a movie called Elysium, which also had some coded messages to awaken the population.
Yes, I'm kind of curious. The Corey Good ET guy, and this will be your final question, has mentioned that in some of his meetings, he's been asked to comment to the secret space program positive military guys who've been on the front lines against the cabal. And, of course, he is telling them the message from the Blue Avians is a message of love and forgiveness. And, of course, they understand it intellectually, but they really don't understand. They consider it's like putting a daisy in a gun. It's really not going to have any effect against these hostile forces. So I guess my question is, they were asking the Blue Avians for rules of engagement. They're going to kind of take the guidance of the ETs and said, well, if we're going to do some things, at what point do we engage? Can you confirm if this information is correct or going out there, or is difficult to confirm Good ET's information?
Regarding this specific situation, again, this is a very delicate situation of finding the right balance. I would say this is a war. And this is not just a physical war. It will not be resolved by physical violence. This war will be resolved by approaching this problem of infection. And because it's an infection, this planet has been infected by certain entities. This problem is going to be resolved with combination of a spiritual approach and physical action made from the right perspective. This is as much as I'm going to say about this right now.
Okay, well, thank you very much. It's been a wonderful interview, Cobra, and I'd like to reemphasize the spiritual aspect of what Cobra talked about. A lot of us focus on and want to have our intellect satisfied, but I think service to others and a spiritual connection to the higher force is very important for us to move forward in a positive future, and developing on the sacred vortex sites communication and islands of light, and this will bring about great changes. Thank you so much, Cobra. Victory to the light. And thank you again for coming on my show. It's always an honor and a pleasure.
Yes, and thank you, everybody, for listening. And we wish you many breakthroughs in the near future.
Yes, good news is ahead. Victory to the light.